Today, I want to talk about my favorite YouTube channel of all time, Stuntman89. Wait, no, my other favorite YouTube channel, RedLetterMedia. Specifically, their Mr. Plinkett reviews of the Star Wars prequel films. If you've never seen them before, for a number of years after their release in the late 2000s and early 2010s, they were kind of considered to be the be-all end-all criticism of those films. Their dry, witty humor and shockingly dark moments were joined by an incredibly detailed and reasonable breakdown of people's immense anger over the films that had bubbled in the decade preceding the reviews. With that said, public perception on the prequels has shifted dramatically in the 15-ish years since the release of the reviews.
Ironic.
The people who watched these Star Wars prequels as kids have incredibly fond memories of the films. I'm one of them. Born in 1994, I was at the perfect age to love each and every one of the first 6 Star Wars films equally. In addition, our culture has shifted quite a bit since the release of these reviews. What elements manage to stand the test of time? Are there aspects that modern audiences might find dated?
I'll get back in the kitchen.
We'll discuss all this and more. I'm going to divide this video into 2 parts. The first discussing the actual criticism of the prequels themselves, and the second being about the other aspects of the Plinkett reviews. Their humor, their subject matter, and the character of Plinkett himself. Let's jump in, shall we?
I hate it when he does that.
Yeah, I bet you do, asshole. Part 1, the reviews. First and foremost, it is pretty astonishing just how wrong Mike and others have been about people's enjoyment of these Star Wars prequels. This isn't to say they're good movies. They're absolutely not, but I and others who grew up with them can enjoy watching them in spite of their quality. Why? Well, it's because of a 9-letter word. Fuck. Nah, I'm just kidding. The word is nostalgia. Nostalgia is fucking real, and it matters to an extent when you're discussing something that people enjoy. You can dismiss it all you want, but it has to. With communities like r/prequel memes growing to literal millions of people, it's clear that, regardless of the quality of the films, something about them continues to mean something to a lot of people. And I think a lot of people didn't expect this. Hell, even Mike Stoklasa, the writer and voice of Mr. Plinkett, said this in a 2010 interview with MTV. I saw that Lucas interview on The Daily Show, where he said something about how people who don't like the prequels, it's just because they didn't grow up with them and they can't get over their childhood. You wait, when kids that watch the prequels now grow up, they won't like them. It'll be different. Hey, poorly aged things. Got another one for you.
You can't go back and watch other things that you watched as kids, and they don't hold up, you know.
Hey, that's my thing, asshole.
Certain movies are timeless, and I don't think the new 3 are.
Like it or not, for better or for worse, these films are loved by countless millions 20 years after their release, with similar fervor to people who grew up watching the original films that came out 20 years prior to the prequels. And now these prequel lovers get to be the adults hating on a new trilogy of Star Wars films. But people who were adults when the prequels were released, like Mike Stoklasa, were understandably very disappointed in the prequels. They even made a whole documentary about it. Hey look, here's a video of Mike interviewing the director of this very documentary.
It's a weird coincidence.
Yeah, really.
It's been interesting to watch people's perceptions change over the last decade. By the time I watched the prequel reviews circa 2013, they were virtually universally hated by the majority of people who hung out in communities where people felt like they had something specific to say about these Star Wars prequels. Forums, YouTube, etc. By 2016, however, the tides had begun to change. The people who grew up with the prequels became adults. They shed their diapers. They got jobs as journalists. They became YouTubers. They became active on forums. The r/prequel memes community was born that year and grew to hundreds of thousands of people within months, a group that would grow over the years to foster pro-prequel sentiment through the lens of humor to an audience of tens or even hundreds of millions across the internet. That same year, Mike released his Plinkett review of The Force Awakens, which also examined Star Wars culture at that time. Mike spends a lot of that review decrying the influx of pro-prequel sentiment at the time, going as far to say that maybe Disney was paying these websites to write these types of articles. Well, I've written for these websites in the past, and the idea that Disney and other companies pay them to sway their sentiment is vastly overblown. People just like the prequels now, no matter how much that fact might make Mr. Plinkett want to murder another one of his ex-wives.
And there are 2 types of people in this world. People that understand what I'm saying, people that like the Star Wars prequels.
Maybe there's a third type of person. I completely understand and fully agree with the overwhelming majority of Mike's criticisms of the prequel films. but I personally get something out of watching them, 100% based on nostalgia, and I think that's how most people who appreciate the prequels feel. Early on in the resurgence, some people did in fact act like the movies themselves were good, but I think this sentiment has largely shifted away, more to just accepting that they're incredibly flawed, but that they have some personal value to the people who watched them as kids, and have many moments that are ripe for transformation in the emerging meme culture.
You are on this council, but we do not grant you the rank of master.
What?
Like, I don't blame Mike and others for not expecting this. When I watched the prequels, most recently a couple years ago I think, they work for me as a gateway to a huge and impactful aspect of my childhood. I think of childhood friends in our lightsaber battles. I think of the countless hours spent playing prequel-era video games. I watch the images in the films, and I think of a simpler time in my life. Does that make them good movies? Of course not.
This is very, very bad. Oh, go.
And Mr. Plinkett gets that point across in excruciating detail. Like I said before, the overwhelming majority of Mike's criticisms of the prequels are on point.
Well, I guess when the guy who's training you says this
weapon is your life.
then you kind of have a distorted view of things. What was it that Yoda once said?
Force not make one great. This weapon is your life.
But now a weapon is your whole life?
This video isn't a review of the prequels, so I won't focus on the specifics of these criticisms too much. You can watch the Plinkett reviews if you want, but Mike brought a level of thoughtfulness and insight to his criticisms that was completely unprecedented when the reviews were released.
I mean, for example, how many times have you seen each of the prequel movies?
Not that many. Yeah.
Well, then you're very insightful.
Mike actually went to film school and was an independent filmmaker for over a decade prior to the release of his Plinkett reviews.
And then Monkey Man puts a machete into Fuckbutt 5000's forehead. So that's our film.
He had genuine qualifications and life experiences that gave him the insight he needed to give the prequels the thorough dismantling they frankly deserved, and he had the editing skills and comedic chops to create a series of videos that fired on all cylinders at the time. He was truly without peer, and the Plinkett reviews are in many ways a reflection of that. With all of that in mind, the movies have an absolute fuck ton of real, genuine issues in virtually every facet. The scripts, the visuals, the cinematography, the acting, the directing. Mike manages to provide clear and reasonable breakdowns on how all of these aspects don't work. For instance, in the first 2 minutes of this whole review trilogy, Plinkett drops a huge knowledge bomb that immediately gets you interested in knowing what else this guy has to say. The fact that The Phantom Menace has no protagonist.
Let's start at movie making 101, shall we? You see, in most movies, the audience needs a character to connect with. Typically, this character is something called a protagonist. I want you to tell me who the main character of The Phantom Menace was.
This is something so essential to any movie, which makes the topic of this film not having one interesting. Yet it's something so subtle that the majority of the people watching the review probably never really thought about it.
I've seen Attack of the Clones 100 times, but there's so many things that I never noticed until you pointed them out.
He explains relatively complex film concepts, like the nuances of visual storytelling, in incredibly succinct and engaging ways.
The framing suggests that there's a clear separation between a normal man and what Vader has become. So whether or not you know it, your brain is being fed information about Darth Vader's character. If this were in a prequel, it would have been done using two characters standing in a room against a green screen done in shot reverse shot. I guess they could have put millions of asteroids flying around the window behind them later.
He perfectly compares the positives of the way the original trilogy was filmed with the negatives of the prequel trilogy. I really could go on, but the point is, virtually every criticism he lobs at the prequels is entirely valid. There is some CinemaSins level nitpicking here and there, but ultimately, they're bad films. And no matter how much you might personally appreciate them, Plinkett makes you accept that they're bad films.
I can really only sum it up with one visual image.
In spite of this, these films are still popular, and Disney now realizes this too. Remember how with The Force Awakens, they worked very hard to distance themselves from anything prequel related? As time has gone by and people's appreciation for the prequels has grown, they've begun to focus more on providing content and imagery from that era instead. To sum it up, Plinkett's critical deconstruction of the prequels still works very well today, pushing 15 years later. With that said, his understandable inability to predict that the kids who grew up with them would still find some level of appreciation for the films, whether through memes, nostalgia, or liking them for some other reason, stands out as something that does not hold up about the Plinkett prequel reviews. Okay, let's move on. Part 2. The humor, the style, and everything else.
I'm from Wisconsin. I made a 70-minute long video.
I talk about how Star Wars is stupid.
So where to begin? I guess let's start with the positive stuff. For the record, in my opinion, Mike Stoklasa is genuinely one of the funniest motherfuckers alive.
Trouble down just went down.
Dude, that's why I wanted to meet you, man, because you're funny.
I didn't find that funny.
He's incredibly quick-witted, smart, and his brand of dry humor is without comparison.
Now, back to 9/11.
Mr. Bob, are jokes about 9/11 off limits?
Hilarious.
In a lot of ways, these Plinkett reviews are the perfect encapsulation of the best parts of his humor style. The scripts are sharp and funny, his voiceover skills put pros to shame, and his ability to create humor through editing stands alone.
Editing is what I like doing the most.
This is what they call filler, and it's nowhere near as good as the kind they put in Twinkies. I like to fuck my cat.
And if you throw in a weird cat sex tape clip right in the middle, why not?
Did China put toxins in my cat food? Is that why my cats keep dying? Or is it because I f***ed them too hard?
Because there's a bit of, juvenile humor, a lot, not just a bit, and it's not for everyone.
Even on this recent rewatch of these reviews, having seen them more times than I'd ever admit in polite company, I was still laughing, chuckling, and cracking up throughout.
If I forget to say action or cut, just cut that.
Every aspect of the movie. He probably got rid of those people that questioned him creatively a long time ago.
So, any other positive stuff to talk about, or should we get into some touchy subjects? Ah, shit. No! Go away! Oh, fuck! Okay, fine. Let's get into the stuff that half of you are going to disagree with because you're annoying, and that half of you are going to agree with because you're also annoying. Let's talk about language. Language is something that grows and changes over time. What's not acceptable to say now may have been acceptable to say in the past for various reasons. This is generally uncontroversial, right? So let's talk about Plinkett's language. First and foremost, this era of Plinkett loves the R word. No, not ramiliferous, a zoological term describing something that bears small branches of some kind, but
retard.
This is a word that has a somewhat complicated history. In 2009 and 2010, when these reviews were made, it was still pretty acceptable to say in most contexts.
CNN just released a recent study. It was a scientific study where they determined that 4% of film critics are retarded.
It was just another word people used to describe something that was particularly dumb. But today, it's generally considered by most to be a needlessly offensive term, deriding people with conditions that they have no control over, so most people avoid using it unless they're, like, giant douchebags. Look, I played a lot of Xbox Live from 2007 to 2012. I'm not going to act all high and mighty and say that I never used language like that. I did. But nowadays, it's generally considered to be a disrespectful word that most people choose not to use for various reasons, making the fact that we hear it so many times throughout this review trilogy to be something that doesn't hold up in 2022.
But instead, the fact that this guy starts talking about the Sith and the legend of Darth Plagueis or whatever, Anakin is just sitting there like a retard. Oh, can I still say retard? Anakin is just sitting there like an exceptional individual.
Red Letter Media in general stopped using this word around 2012 or 2013, pretty much at the tail end of when it was still socially acceptable.
What about retards? I'm a retard, and I get offended whenever I hear someone use the word retard.
I don't think it was because they were bending the knee to woke moralists or whatever. I don't think these guys would do that.
Oh yeah, or he saw a completely contextless clip and decided to label it sexist.
Oh, Joss Whedon. Sensitive Joss Whedon. That's what we should call him from now on, is Sensitive Joss Whedon. That's a little clunky. Maybe we should use an acronym.
Oh, sure.
I think they just realized why people stopped saying it, accepted the reasoning, and moved on. In regard to specific words, this is about as bad as it gets for the trilogy though. Though I think Plinkett uses a censored F-word slur in the Phantom Menace review.
Don't any of you f***its tell me that it was explained more in the novelization or some Star Wars book.
John Malkovich walks in and all he sees is Ken Jeong with his pants down, and he assumes that there's fag shenanigans going on.
I also get the vibe that there's a lot of pent-up misogyny within this particular era of Mike Stoklasa.
Right, because women have imaginations. I mean, they also have jugs and holes, but they have imaginations. They have multiple holes, actually. And that's all they're good for. Can you cut that?
And some of it bleeds into these reviews.
What the fuck is he supposed to help the mom with? A vacuum would have been a better thing to build. Or maybe a vibrator, as it seems like the only action Shmi was getting was with the Force. Hey, maybe that's why they call it the Force. Ah, rape jokes. I love them.
First and foremost, I want to be clear that you can have misogynistic humor that works. I don't want to be the no fun police, y'all. Some of the misogynistic humor in the Plinkett reviews does work, and is funny in the right context.
And then they roll around. The ladies like it when you roll around with them in the grass. But only if they're awake and not drugged. Now you say, maybe they are in love, and maybe I just don't see it because I'm a psychopath who butchers women. Well, yeah.
What about jokes about the Holocaust or dead babies? What about AIDS?
How do you feel about demeaning women?
However, a whole lot of it kind of doesn't.
Women like when you ask them questions about things. They like to talk about themselves a lot and don't really care what you have to say.
A huge part of Plinkett's character from this era is that he kidnaps, tortures, and murders women.
The only way to really describe it was to imagine that someone has dumped out 5 separate puzzles into a pile on the floor, mixed them all up, and told you to put them all back together in 1 hour. Or they were gonna stuff you into an old fridge filled with flesh-eating cockroaches.
Why are you doing this to us?
59 minutes!
I think this is a relatively fine element to the reviews. It's dark and pretty disturbing, of course, but it is meant to be satirical, and it works as a way to shock the audience, catch them off guard. I like the way one commenter on Reddit put it. The misogyny is a satirical device for a fictitious and obviously morally bankrupt character to wield to essentially undermine his authority as a critic. Still, I suppose you could accomplish this same thing by different means, which Plinkett does do in future reviews since the violence against women stuff was severely toned down as the years went on. So all in all, this stuff might not be in the best taste, and might be a little jarring to people in 2022, but I don't think there's much that's outright offensive in the concept or its execution.
And look, you can make the case that that is in bad taste. You can also make the case that it's very funny. Two things can be true here.
I don't read any sort of social commentary about violence against women or anything, not that there necessarily needs to be. With that said, there is a lot of actually misogynistic stuff in these reviews that doesn't come across as particularly satirical.
And by the way, what in the hell is she wearing? I mean, really? She's kind of just asking for this guy to use the Force, isn't she?
For example, in the Attack of the Clones review, the bit where he's complaining about the differences between what men and women seek in a partner is shallow and has real proto-incel energy to me.
For most men, and especially Anakin, a 19-year-old male with raging hormones, the list of what he's looking for in a relationship is rather short. Number 1, is she hot? Number 2, seriously bro, how hot is she? And that's it. Now what women are looking for is a little more complex. Their list is as follows.
Does he have a good job? Where does he live and what kind of car does he drive? He needs to be confident without being too arrogant. He needs to be funny, but not like goofy funny. He needs to be tall, but not too tall or like weird tall. He should be spontaneous, but only when I'm expecting it. He needs to care about me, but not be too controlling. You know, sometimes I just want to go out and have fun with the girls, and he needs to be okay with that and not get all like,
stop.
hey, where
Thank
are you
that'll
going?
be all. Then the list goes on to 167, but I'll stop there, you get the point.
Like, this isn't even a joke, it's delivered without any pretense of irony. The part where he describes what a woman might mean if she smiles at you also comes across the same way.
You see, when you say something right to a woman, she smiles, tickles her brain, which in turn sends blood flowing down to her sex hole. But her smile could also be deceptive, and could indicate one of 117 different things. Sarcasm, incredulity, condescension, confusion, contemplation, facetiousness.
Treating women like they're these conniving monsters who are out to get you, and men are these innocent bystanders, is definitely outdated. He also says some BS PUA stuff about men's assertiveness needing to take over when in conversation with a woman.
Women don't mind an initial nervousness from a guy. It's complimentary and cute to them. But it gets old real fast. Assertiveness needs to take over quickly.
Hey Plinkett! Lay off the Jordan Peterson, buddy. Women might actually like you and you won't need to kidnap them.
Well, yeah.
Is the implication with these women that they're underage or something? Not sure.
Hey, cut it out. Look, I said I'll talk about their...
And for one, they picked a pretty friggin' ugly kid to be Flying Ryan.
Yeah.
That's pretty mean of you to say.
Yeah, he's in the movie and then he's dating this smoking hot Latina.
Yep. That's why some people call him a Basil.
And they have this like...
I don't know if it's appropriate to call a 12-year-old smoking hot, and I'm not even sure if she was a Latina.
Anyways, so it's implied that they're going to have sex in many scenes.
Kind of off topic, but one of the most cringeworthy things I've ever seen in my entire life is an early half in the bag. RedLetterMedia's new release review show, where they invited a local actress they had worked with previously to discuss an uncharacteristic rom-com. She actually appears in the Phantom Menace review.
Princess Leia's kind of like the smart one, which obviously she's the woman, so it makes sense that she would be the voice of reason and empathy.
Mike comes across so fucking horribly in this video. Like, she tries to explain to him several times why she just kind of likes watching rom-coms sometimes.
But I find them really relaxing. I know exactly where they're going. I can go in there and just tune out.
And Mike constantly shoots back so defensively and comes across like a gigantic asshole.
I take more personal offense.
I know you do.
I know it's just a product meant for a certain type of audience or whoever is dumb enough to pay for it, but when I'm watching it as just a human being, I guess
what I find so aggressive about the way that you're saying it is that you're saying, or someone who's dumb enough to pay for it. Well, that's me. And I'm not dumb.
It's really bizarre and spectacularly cringy. It's literally hard for me to watch. I always skip it when I rewatch or re-listen to their content. I get the vibe that this younger Mike just had some pent-up misogynistic attitudes. I don't judge him for it. I don't judge my younger self for my shittier beliefs. I don't judge you for it either, person who already dropped a dislike and left a comment talking about how what I'm discussing here is woke garbage. So did Mike have some sexist sensibilities in the past? I'll leave it up to you to say definitively. Oh, huh? What? Oh, hey, what is this? A forum post Mike made in 2003? Okay, let's take a look. Oh, okay, so he was talking about SNL at the time, okay. I personally like all the women except for Tina Fey. Tina is a soulless, horrible, cynical, liberal, leftist cunt. I lost all respect for her when right after 9/11 she was on there with Rudy, all like full of love, then a few months later, made a few horrible, vile, cynical remarks about him. I'm aware there are writers, but fuck that four-eyed, snot-nosed, little know-it-all, fuck whore, New York limousine liberal cunt. I like Sherry O'Terry a lot. And, this was his profile picture. So do I even need to provide analysis here? Take that however you will. Having watched all of their content all the way through many many, many, many times over, I feel like I can say these attitudes have gone away. Mike, as well as Jay, come across as generally socially progressive people nowadays, about as progressive as you can expect people from the Midwest in their mid-40s to be.
I'm afraid like the next skit's gonna be how the Jews view police officers.
Yeah, you're right. We full disclosure, we didn't watch the whole tape.
We do not endorse any of this man's stuff.
So if he starts endorsing like white genocide ideas near the end of this, we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
We stopped.
We just thought it was funny when he got a pie in the face, okay? Give us a break.
They regularly hang out with outwardly progressive people like Jack and Josh.
So tell us all about bullets, you right-wing gun nut.
There is a constitutional amendment, right to bear arms.
Yeah.
Jay, I think it's unfair to compare the kid to Jeffrey Dahmer. Jeffrey Dahmer had better taste in clothes.
And we said, like, he sounds like a lawyer. Like you said that, I think.
He didn't sound like a typical
He didn't sound like a dumb redneck. He sounds like a lawyer.
It's like that redneck was yelling in his video blog. I don't even know what Parasite's about.
I've watched that video multiple times, and it makes me laugh and feel horrible every time.
I'm sorry, if you won Best Porn Film, you should automatically be invalid to even be qualified to win Best Picture. Look at United States of America right now. What is more important to our culture than the Joker? About a movie, about how people in high places look down and frown upon the poor, the poverty.
This is America. This is United States America. We didn't watch Parasite because we wanted to show how woke we are.
I don't think most people did.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is
Yeah.
that this guy's blog or whatever blog is stupid.
Right. Well, Mike, it's been a crazy few months. In sports news, I can't believe that the Chicago Cubs finally won the World Series.
And in politics, the U.S. presidential election is over as well. I can't believe that insert criminal's name here won the election. And that, I think, would have satiated the guys, the basement dwelling incel.
Spoilers, it wouldn't have. That would have made it worse.
Oh,
now she
dang.
thinks she can. The woman's taking over the man's leadership role.
I mean, I get it.
Woke.
I'm not pro-woke or anti-woke. I'm neither.
I just think it's gotten out of control.
I
There
don't
was,
care.
before the new Jurassic World movie came out, like the first promotional image for it was Chris Pratt standing next to Black Lady. And it was just an image of two people standing there.
Yeah, they're standing there.
And
like,
people were woke. It's like, it's just a black woman existing. It's just a photo. What are we doing?
to be honest,
They speak about progressive topics like violence against women and issues other marginalized communities face with empathy and understanding.
that's an important point, Jack. That they were trying to say something.
That's right.
Can you talk about that in detail?
Oh, sure.
African American culture.
Absolutely.
You are the authority.
I'm the authority, obviously. Let's have these four middle-aged white guys from Wisconsin explain to you about the black experience.
I can't find every clip because it'd take forever and I don't have quite an encyclopedic knowledge of every word they've ever said just yet, but they also directly make positive insinuations toward progressivism in general.
It was interesting that they had a female villain. This film was actually pretty progressive.
Well, and everybody was used well.
Uncle Frank is a closeted homosexual. In 1969, he lives in New York City. He's a professor with more, progressive, advanced, enlightened people, and his family is from the redneck South.
Okay.
You have to have some nerve to walk onto the set of a trash movie where you're taking 98% of the money and everyone else around you is either working for free or peanuts.
Yeah.
And I would feel like a huge piece of dog shit if I did that.
Doing absolutely nothing.
Doing barely anything, and everyone else doing tons of work and trying to make it in the business, and you're riding that wave of your name
I get it, you earned that name, but I would still feel like a piece of garbage, like making that much money when someone else is making $100 to hold the boom mic. I would feel crappy.
Anakin tries to discuss politics and admits he supports a fascist dictatorship.
I fully believe in people's ability to grow, change, learn, and shed their ignorance, and to get fully parasocial. I think Mike's in a good place now. Still, some of the stuff in these Plinkett reviews does cross the line, and might hurt their perception to some audiences in 2022.
Holy shit, this guy is a fucking annoying whiner. I really can't see myself with him. If he's bitching about this, imagine how he'll act when I want him to go see Wicked with me.
And we all got together and watched random videos that we selected on a wooden wheel.
We're all gonna die.
And we are all white.
On this same note, I was a little struck by Mike's comments on black people in the Attack of the Clones review.
But what was an issue was demographics. Truth is, and I'm just gonna say it, black people don't really like Star Wars all that much. Sure, some do, I guess. But it's a really small number.
Like, come on, man. His ultimate point in this segment is that Samuel L. Jackson's talents are underutilized in the prequel films, and that he was simply chosen for star power to attract black audiences. There might be some validity to that, but it's less about black people not liking Star Wars, and more about people generally liking to see a representation of themselves in any media. Mike goes on to list movies by black filmmakers with black casts, and implies that black people, this monolith, like these types of movies and not Star Wars.
Now, the urban market once stole my TV, so I know they like movies. But usually it's things like Barbershop, Mayberda Goes to Jail, Soul Food,
I mean, there's no real way to be generous here. This is just completely off base, ignorant, and yeah, kind of racist. Now, I'm using that term very broadly here. Racism isn't just calling someone the N-word to their face. Racism can be deep-rooted, it can be very subtle, it can be systemic, and it can build up over time.
But if I had to pick one demographic that would be least likely to watch a movie with scenes like this, it'd be black people. Oh, come on, you know I'm right.
It can also be Mike actually using the N-word in a previous Plinkett review.
Okay, my niggas, dig this. If it were just a window, in Jedi we also got to see the first Jew in Star Wars.
No, stop! Can't laugh at that, damn it!
Mr. Bott, what is your stance on jokes about minorities, like Hispanics, blacks, or Jews?
This is an emotional moment. Anakin just killed some sand people.
You mean Arabs?
No, you racist, no.
Oh.
Should we get into the weeds? Let's get into the fucking weeds. I'll try to go quick. Before RedLetterMedia, Mike Stoklasa started GMP Pictures. There are a lot of weird things you can find about GMP and other related stuff, but I stumbled upon a film called White Thugs that I thought had an interesting description. Thugs tells the tale of two rich kids living in the rich suburbs that think they are black gang members. Come one, we all know the type.
Oh, come on, you know I'm right.
They duck from non-existent drive-bys and claim to know the hardships of, quote, thug life. I worked tirelessly trying to find this film, but my efforts came up short. I'm sure it would have been fascinating. I honestly couldn't find any evidence that Mike had any involvement with this particular film. GMP was more of a group of people, I think, other than a post from 2001 on Blank Screen Cinema's forum, which was an indie film company Jay Bauman of RedLetterMedia was associated with, where Mike said, "We are making White Thugs 2. I swear we really are. It's gonna be the best." A forum aptly titled, "Irish Need Not Post Here."
Yeah, they said she's from Celtic descent.
Yeah.
So she's Irish. They didn't say she's Irish. That would sound so like rough and awful.
Yeah.
They've been, oh my God, Irish? What does she drink all day? Like,
oh God, and then there's these weird documents from like 2013 that insinuate Mike may or may not have been a closet racist. Oh God, what am I doing here? As soon as you're getting into archive.org snapshots of early 2000s forum posts, you know you're off the deep end. Oh my God, huh? What the hell is this? A 2004 interview where Mike says that he's a social Darwinist? A belief that certain people become more powerful in society because they are innately better? That has been used to justify imperialism, racism, eugenics, and social inequality at various times over the past century and a half? Is this even relevant? Fuck. I'm really getting lost in the fucking sauce, aren't I? I guess ultimately what I'm trying to prove here is that Mike Stoklasa is a filthy racist and we need to cancel him immediately. Fuck you, you disgusting piece of shit.
I may have gone too far in a few places.
Okay, in all seriousness, Mike et al. Are clearly just being edgy, and maybe the dude had some non-malicious but still systemically racist and sexist sensibilities, and some of that maybe bled into the second Plinkett prequel review. Have I proven this to you with all this random junk? I'm not even sure I proved it to myself, so I guess I'd better move on.
This is my first movie. Barbarian's my first directorial movie.
Yeah, that's fair.
I guess.
I don't mind sweeping some things under the rug. I respect that.
Number 14, I'm done.
Okay, I think I'm almost done here. Before I conclude, I want to throw a couple of random things out there. For one, we live in the age of 1080p and 4K, and the quality of these reviews is definitely a dated element. The first two are not only in 360p, but they're in fucking 4:3. The audio quality of the Phantom Menace review is also a little poor.
Number 5, I can't put enough quotation marks around the word story, so I won't try.
Someone went ahead and painstakingly remastered the first two reviews using HD clips, so if you find that more accessible, power to you. But I think some of this actually works to the series' advantage though, in regard to its aesthetic. There's an overall dinginess to it all that I absolutely love. Like, Mike manages to find the perfect gross looking photos for the cutaways, perfectly capturing the grossness and trashiness of Mr. Plinkett through his editing. Generally speaking, the Phantom Menace review is a little slower paced than most modern video essays, so TikTok-brained Zoomers might get bored, but just turn the playback speed to 2x. I'm sure you'll be fine then. The delivery in the latter two reviews is much crisper though. Okay. Anything else to talk about? Part 3. In conclusion. So, do the Mr. Plinkett prequel reviews hold up?
Please email me the answer to I don't give a crap at whocaresyoustupiddipshit.asshole.net.
Well, as we learned throughout this review, the answer is it's complicated. The actual criticisms of the films are 100% spot on. No reviews that came before them, and none since, have managed to tell the story of why these movies don't work like these ones have. With that said, the disdain Plinkett has with the films, and those who get something out of them, is definitely an element that is showing its age 15 years later.
I stand by my statement that people that like these films are either drooling idiots that just like lightsabers or tiny babies.
Anakin.
Regardless of their quality, millions of grown-ass people genuinely like these movies for one reason or another. But you can still like and agree with the Plinkett reviews and like the prequels. I don't think your enjoyment of the films and these reviews need to be mutually exclusive. The reviews are also incredibly funny and well written, and Mike's performance as Plinkett is perfection.
And I started recording the voice in my normal voice.
It ruined everything. Not just Star Trek movies, but everything. And so thus, they pass a very awkward, poorly written torch to the next generation and ruin everything from here on out.
And I was like, this is boring.
Call me a stan, but I think Mike Stoklasa is a generational talent. I'd call these Plinkett reviews his magnum opus, but he was just getting started. What he and his crew at RedLetterMedia have done in the last 15 years and continue to do is nothing short of a miracle. That said, there is some genuine misogyny.
He's not a risk taker and he complains all the time like a woman.
And some elements that some might find as racist, from a white guy talking about stuff he doesn't really understand kind of way. Relatively innocent, but still an issue. I think the highs and lows average out to these reviews mostly holding up. Maybe 60-40, let's say. They're still absolutely worth watching, and when they work, there's some of the best content ever put on the internet, with the notion in mind that there are many elements that are somewhat dated in the modern day. These reviews hold a really special place in my heart. Truly, they're a big part of what inspired me to create video essays. Ah, fuck, really? But I was gonna, like... Whatever. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments, and be sure to subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.